Hey folks, today in the kitchen I'm going to be making some peach and apple wine. So as the name suggests, we've got peaches from the supermarket and we've got apples from my garden. I'm simply going to chop these up today and add them to some spring water, which I'm going to bring to the boil and then turn off, and then I'm going to leave it for a couple of days for all the juices from the fruit to filter out into the water. So I'm just roughly chopping the apple. No need for anything fancy. Leave the pips in, leave the core in, leave the skin on. It doesn't matter because it's going to get filtered later anyway. Now it's the same process with the peaches, except for I'm cutting around the stone and then twisting the peach. Now we've got the stone there and not there. So the half without the stone I can just cut. And the half with the stone, I'm just going to cut around the stone just to get that out. Annoyingly, this is one of those fruit that come in the supermarket in a plastic tub. I don't know why they put them in plastic tubs, but because of the shape of this one, I'm just going to make little holes in the bottom and I'll be able to use that as a planter to get something started like lettuce plants or something like that, so it won't be wasted. So I'm just going to let it come to the boil and then I'm going to switch it straight off. I don't want it to boil for any length of time. I just want it to get up to temperature, and then I'm going to leave it for a couple of days for all the juices to filter out. So the temperature of the water just got to boiling and I turned it off. And all I'm going to do now is just give the fruit a little mash to release the fibres and the flavours and create a really fruity flavoured must or wort, whatever you want to call it. I'm now going to leave that to sit there and stew for a couple of days. As with any wine making, it's important to sterilise your equipment. So I'm just putting some of this no rinse sanitizer in my demijohn. I've never tried it before. And a bit with my bung and airlock. Well, it's a couple of days later and everything has been sanitised and sterilised and I'm ready to go. Over here, the fruit has been brought to the boil previously. It's been left for a couple of days. I've just put some more heat to it just to warm it up a little bit. And then we need to get the fruit out of there and into the demijohn via the jug. I'm now pouring the water through a sieve into the jug. I don't want to lose any, so I'll just let it filter through. You can really smell the peach. It really comes through, and that's one of the great things about making wine with peaches. Peach is an excellent fruit for making wine with because it really does have a strong flavour that really percolates into the water. And if you look at the mixture and that, there's plenty of flesh there. So yeah, my tip, if you like sweet wines, if you like peach flavours, then you can't go much wrong with making peach wine. I'm just going to push it a little bit to get the excess moisture out. I don't want to push too much of the flesh through the sieve because that will mean I've got more sediment to deal with, and more sediment in the demijohn means less wine. So I'm just sort of pushing it to squeeze the water out without trying to push the fibre through. So that process is completed. I've got a full jug of peachy appley liquid, which is nearly 2 litres. And over here is all of the waste flesh from the fruit, but that's not going in the bin. It's full of nutrients, it's going on the garden. So everything gets used, nothing gets wasted. I've emptied the water out of the demijohn. It's clean, it's sanitised, it's sterilised, and now I've got to very carefully add this flavoursome liquid So that's what I've currently got. So what I'm going to do now is I'm probably going to get another litre or so of water, which will take me to about there, and I'm going to dissolve as much sugar in it as I can, and then I'm going to add that to this, let it cool down, and then add the yeast. So that's a litre of spring water going in here. Now I should mention I'm using spring water, here it is, because I live in Leeds, and the tap water in Leeds has got a bit of a chlorininess to it, and sometimes that I find that with wine it can make it taste a little bit funny. So I prefer to use spring water, which I think I get better results from. You'll also note that I haven't washed the pan because it's only had the previous spring water and fruit in it, so that's fine, there's probably a bit more flavour there. So I need to turn the ring on. And I need to get this up to temperature. So I'm warming my water up and I want to bring it to the boil, and I'm going to add to that some sugar, which I'm going to keep adding it until it forms what's called a saturated solution, and that means that the sugar won't dissolve anymore, so it's holding as much as it can. So we've got the sugary water, and I'm going to stir it to help it dissolve. So that 1 litre of water has actually dissolved an entire bag of sugar. The water's gone really thick and buoyant. I'm just going to put my very dense sugary water in the jug. It's like pouring syrup, actually. Pour my dense sugary water into the demijohn. I'll have to rinse the outside of the demijohn afterwards because it's sticky as anything, or you get spillage. So now I've got the peach and apple must and the sugar water all in the demijohn. The temperature is hot. It's far too hot to put the yeast in. The yeast will die if I put in that temperature, so I'm going to wait for it to cool down, probably about maybe an hour or so, and then I'll add the yeast to it. Okay, I'm just going to add the yeast. Altogether I'll probably put just over a teaspoon of it in there. The temperature of the liquid is now just slightly above room temperature, but certainly no more. So the yeast will absolutely love that mixture. There's so much fruit in it, so much sugar in it, and the yeast will have a good feed on that, and it will start to ferment. They'll produce CO2, which will come out of the top, and that will come through the airlock, which I'm going to put in next. So the airlock goes in next. There we go. So that will prevent any contaminants from getting into the demijohn. And when the yeast starts to cause fermentation, it will go pop, pop, and it will come out of the top by pushing the water through the U-bend just there. You can see how much flesh has got through. Look how much sediment's already in the bottom of that. And that's, I mean, actually the liquid is clearing fairly well. I've put the yeast in and it's sitting on the sediment. So this is actually going to be quite a sedimenty wine. It's probably going to finish maybe about there in terms of sediment. But I'm not going to top this up to the top until the yeast has had a chance to activate, because once the yeast begins, it will start to build a foam on top. And what I don't want to do is for the foam to come up and out of the top of the airlock. So I'm just going to leave it like this for a day or two, and then once I'm happy that it's not going to flood out, then I will top it up with the remainder of the spring water. So this is the next morning, and you can see in terms of progress that we've got some nice bubbles coming out of the airlock. The yeast is activated, it's enjoying eating the sugar, and it's starting the fermentation process. I've filled the demijohn up a little bit higher with water, and it's not looking like it's going to come flooding out of the top. I just need to wait for this to die back a little bit, and then I'll just keep topping it up until we're there. But for now I think I can leave this and come back to it in a couple of weeks' time. Hey folks, just a 2-week update on the peach and apple wine. So as you can see, it's bubbling away nicely. Still fermenting. But what I want to do now is to get rid of some of the sediment at the bottom and top it up with some more water and a bit more sugar. So I'm going to be using my siphon to get the wine out of here and into here before going back again. So here goes. So this is where I've left it. Got to sample the goods. It's delicious. It's got a really appley cidery taste, but a sweetness from the peach as well. It's kind of a medium dry, but quite potent already. So I'm going to pour this back into the original demijohn. I'm going to add a bit more sugar to it. I'm just topping it up now with some spring water. And that's now all done. And that's now back with the other ones. And I'll update you in a few weeks' time when it's ready for bottling. Hello again from the kitchen, folks. Today I'm going to be clearing my wine. So you can see it here in the demijohn. It's just about done now. It's still fermenting a little bit, but I want to add the finings today to start to the clearing process. So there it is. There's very little sediment in it, which is good. That means I should get almost 6 bottles of wine, hopefully, from this one. So the next step is to siphon. Here goes. Quite dry. So I can go all the way to almost the very bottom with this. And I shall get a good amount in here. And as that's going in, I'm going to add a few drops of finings A. So this is wine finings A, and this comes from Clear It Wine Finings. And what you do is you add a couple of drops of A to begin with, and then you add a couple of drops of B. But you need to wait an hour in between them. So we're just about done there, that's it, the bubble's in the tube. And we've got a nice amount of wine in here. So I'm just going to give this a little swizzle around with finings A. Want that to mix in nicely. So I'll come back in an hour's time. Right, it's now time to add the wine back into its original demijohn, which I've cleaned out. And I'm going to add to that some finings B. So there it is, it's back in the demijohn. I've put the airlock back in. You can see that there is still some fermentation. I need a little bit of fermentation because I'm making sparkling wine, but I'm hoping that that will slow down now. I think agitating the wine has probably invigorated it and woken it up a little bit. So the wine is now back with the other demijohns, and the next film I make of the peach and apple wine will be the bottling. Hey folks, it's another homebrew day in the kitchen, and today I'm going to be bottling my peach and apple wine. Okay, so my bottles are clean and sterilised, they're in the sink, they're ready. I've got my plastic stoppers to go in the tops of the bottles, just there in hot water. They're softening, so they'll go into the bottles easier, and also sterilising. And here is the wine. So I started this wine in November 2020. It's now January 2021. It's been cleared as much as it will go. I can't get it to go any clearer. And in fact, I've actually given it an extra 2 weeks to clear, which has delayed me a little bit. That might have made it a little bit overly strong, and it might nullify my chances of making it sparkling. There is a tiny amount of life in it, but I'm hoping to kickstart that life with the addition of a little bit of sugar. So in each of the bottles, I'm basically putting the equivalent of a good heaped teaspoonful of sugar. So that's my first stage today. So now I've got my siphoning tube. I'm going to put that into the demijohn, keeping it just above the level of the yeast. Here's the fun bit. And in we go. So the wine, when it hits the sugar, will hopefully feel like, oh, I can do a little bit more fermentation. And that should hopefully give it a bit of a sparkle, but I don't know if it'll work or not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And this is just now a case of filling the bottles. There you go, so there's a little bit of life in that. Now, this is either because the yeast is reacting to the sugar and going, oh, nice, or it's because of the process of putting it in the bottles, which has trapped a bit of air with it, and it's just getting that air out. I won't know until it's opened properly, but initially that's not a bad sign. So now it's simply a case of getting my stoppers, pushing them into the top, which is slightly easier said than done. Although putting them in hot water softens them a lot and makes the job much easier. Because trust me, the first time I did this, I didn't know about softening them and it was a mission. Cages. If you don't put cages on this, you're going to be looking at explosions. If it does begin to ferment inside there with that little bit of sugar to give it a sparkle. So the cages are all important. They're not there. The cages aren't there for vanity reasons. They're there because without them, we're looking at pop, 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 pop. So, cages. So there we have them, folks. So I need to label the bottles now, and I'll give them a try once they've been stood for a couple of weeks. However, there was a little extra half a bottle, so I'm just going to have a look at this in a glass, have a little sniff. So see for yourself, it doesn't look too bad at all, really. Give it a little stir. I can smell the peach. Quite dry. You can smell the peach more than you can taste the peach. It's like a dry cider, really dry cider. Quite strong. Tastes around maybe 9–10%. So if this does sparkle, this will actually be a decent brew, but only time will tell. Anyway, so I'll be back in a couple of weeks' time to see if it's sparkled and let you know the results. See you later, folks. Cheers. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. Tonight it's time to open the peach and apple wine and see how it is. So there's the wine, and as you can see, it's lovely and clear. Well, almost clear. But will it be sparkling, and what will it taste like? There's only one way to find out. There we go. Cage off. I don't think it is going to be sparkling. Let's see. Nah, no sparkle. Oh well, let's see what it looks and tastes like. I'm very happy with the appearance, I have to say. Oh, really strong fruity smell. And very alcoholic smell as well. The peach really comes through, and it's almost got like a high alcohol vodka-iness to it. It's quite syrupy too. I don't think I could drink a full bottle at once. Actually, I probably could. Decent, not sparkling, nice and clear. Okay flavour, very fruity, but strong. Probably all right with some lemonade or something like that, just as a little mixer. But I'd say it's a success. It just hasn't turned out quite the way I wanted it to. Anyway, cheers folks. Catch you next time. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.